Now I've just zoomed in slightly to focus on one of these blocks, and you notice that the blocks have sub-compartments in them to represent, for example, the properties of a lamp and its operation and the constraints. Actually, we want to modify this display here slightly because we want to focus specifically on the operations, the thing that block can do, but also I want to start defining the interface. In sysML, those are called flow ports. So what I'm going to do here is actually set this up so that I can see different compartments. And you do that by right-clicking on the block, selecting the filters option, and then show hide compartments. At this point you need to expand the list, and you'll see that in fact there's a whole list of different sections you could look at. What we're actually interested, we're not interested in constraints, we can switch that off. And at the moment we're not interested in properties, so we can switch that one off. But I am interested in seeing the flow ports, that is the interfaces to this block. So I've just selected flow ports and operations, and then I can select OK. We need to do that for each of the blocks, and I'll let you go ahead and do that on your own. So at this point I've set up the display, so I can, on each of the blocks, I can see flow ports and operations, that is the interfaces that appear on this type of block and the things they do. And I want to start actually defining interfaces for each of these components. And I'm going to do that using flowport from the palette over here, and there's a section marked port and flows. And I'm going to take a flowport and I'm going to drag it onto the lamp in that flowport compartment. So there it's created. I need to give it a sensible name, and I'm going to call this. I'm going to name it to switch on, to switch the lamp on and off. I'm going to call it lamp on off. You may have to expand the width of your block to make that clearly visible. You notice at the moment that this has been, it's indicating that this particular interface, it has both an in and out direction, that it's if you like, the flow of information from this is both in and out. But in fact, for a lamp, this is just a control signal in. So what I in fact want to do with this is set this so that so the information only flows in. So if you select the flow port down in the properties section here, and by the way, there's the option to rename it in the name field. But if I move, if I scroll down the properties list somewhat, you see over here there is a field that says direction, and that defines the, if you like, if this is a male or female, if it's input or output, and what the direction of flow is. And in this case, the information will only be flowing into the lamp. That is the control signal to switch a lamp on and off. So I've set that to an in. So now I've got a block that's got an interface to define an input signal to switch that lamp on and off. So now your task is to add flow ports to all of these other blocks, and that replicates figure 8 in the course material, and in a second I'll show you the final results, but your job is really just to replicate that for each of the other blocks. And so I've gone through and added all of my different flow ports. You can see these are on the lamp, the timer, the motor, the door, and so on. If you find it's a little bit cramped to work on a screen like this, by the way, you can expand the window to show the full drawing page, and usefully it keeps your drawing palette on the side. So before going on to the next video, you should ensure that you've replicated this diagram with all of the flow ports in each of the blocks. Don't worry for the moment that there are some undefined messages at the end of these flow ports. We are going to come back to that later on. But your task before the next video is to replicate this diagram as I've done, lay it out neatly with all of the flow ports, all of the interfaces associated with each of the blocks.